Hello and welcome to Inside Include, an exclusive podcast episode where we explore important conversations shaping our university community. I'm Amy May Wilson, a student support advisor at the International Pathway College, University of York, and today I'm joined by Jamie Wood, a co-chair of Include, a group dedicated to supporting disabled staff, advocating for accessibility, and fostering an inclusive workplace. I will be informally interviewing Jamie on matters such as eco-ableism, co-production and representation, all of which were topics suggested by local organisations and contacts such as York Human Rights City Network, the Department of Health Sciences and Rachael Maskell. Let's get into it. Welcome to the show.
So I'm an academic here at York. I've been here for nearly 18 years. And over that time, unfortunately, my progressive condition, multiple sclerosis, has meant that I've gone from being able-bodied but with a chronic condition to being disabled with a chronic condition. It's been an unusual journey in the sense that I've been supported by the university the whole time, and I've moved from being full-time when I first arrived to being part-time. And I've in general tried to play down. I've tried to not be represented as a disabled person, a disabled academic, but my disability is now such that I've become more involved, and I became co-chair of Include about 3 years ago. I found that very valuable. So it's hopefully that people can see that you can be disabled but still succeed in a university. So I've gone through the promotions process and I'm now a professor in 2 departments, and I represent the university on various high-level committees which are not associated with being a disabled member of staff. As part of the staff network, we engage in lots of different issues. We're an informal network to support staff. We also represent disability issues at the university level. So, for example, we sit on various committees associated with the physical accessibility with campus, as well as the culture and good practice groups. And on top of that, we sometimes represent the university at recruitment type situations to provide a voice for EDI, and we connect across staff. But fundamentally, we're there for staff to provide a level of support and a knowledge that the university is disability confident.
Thank you, Jamie. I didn't realise Include were involved with recruitment. That's reassuring to hear. And thank you for being a voice for those in similar situations to yourself, as you mentioned. So the first question I have for you is from Madeline Baxter, Research Assistant for the Department of Health Sciences. She wonders to what extent is co-production used within your work and interactions with the university to make sure that staff and students with disabilities have their voices heard.
So thank you for that question, Madeline. I think the level of co-production is a really live topic of debate at the moment. It's a bit difficult to answer your question at the level that you've posed it at, because I think in many ways the university is excellent at the way it does this in terms of involving groups in there, and that's why the Include Staff Network exists. So we exist as a grouping, as a critical friend to the university, which the university can turn to ask questions. Now, of course, that's not sufficient, and absolutely the university is proactive about this, and so we sit on groups where we're actually able to interact with estates, with the other parts of the university hierarchy. I think estates are perhaps probably the ones that have the most direct interaction with us. It really helps that we can sort of get involved at an early stage in this, and that's the real key to co-production. Ultimately, we're not experts. I don't know how to build a building. But what I can do is I can give my lived experience, which might influence something or pick up on something which is a little bit unusual, that enables something to be better and enables this to be taken into account. And I think the university is doing a really good job of that. I think in some ways now the university's got an alternate problem, which is that it creates a very large workload on people who are in that position to be able to give that influence, because so few people are in the position where they were willing to give their views openly and are openly saying that they're disabled or have other parts of other minority groups, that actually you get a very high workload demand on the small number of people who are willing to do that. I think as a society, we're still trying to balance out now that how appropriate is it to load those people that are in a minority. But it's still positive, and I think in getting people involved at a low level early is so much more important than sort of having to press the alarm bells when things are already gone too far.
Thank you for that, Jamie. It's exactly that, isn't it? How much should we be relying on individuals to provide lived experience when it's not exactly their responsibility? For context, Madeline worked on Reverse the Ban in the city centre, a successful initiative to reverse the ban on blue badge holders' access to York's pedestrian streets. She discovered that the council would take tours with people in wheelchairs to gain authentic insight into the challenges which limit their accessibility daily. Madeline's question on co-production sprung from research she had previously facilitated to advocate for accessibility. Okay, next question I have for you is from York Human Rights City Network. They are wondering what your views are on the environmental movement and sustainability initiatives. How do we ensure that they don't further marginalise disabled people and further restrict their human rights?
So thanks for this question. It is an area of considerable challenge that we're going to have to confront over the next 10, 20, 30 years about exactly where we position ourselves in terms of the ability of us to respond to what's happening with the climate whilst retaining the kind of essential freedoms for everybody that we want to try and retain, and how we prioritize that. And I think eco-ableism is a term that's been adopted that particularly came out of the plastic straws debate, where there was a move to ban single-use plastic straws, despite the fact they're being essential to some disabled people. And so in effect, you created a level of discrimination by doing a seemingly appropriate ban on a non-sustainable product.
I think that links really nicely with our final question from Rachael Maskell, Labour MP for York Central, stating that disabled people are impacted disproportionately by the impact of climate degradation. For instance, a heightened level of respiratory or cardiovascular disease due to pollution. How do we ensure that disabled people are seen at the forefront of the campaign to tell the story of the present impact of failed policies, as too many people are talking about future risk, so are not seeing the urgency in the present?
So I'm very glad to see these two points of view that are coming across in these questions, because I think ultimately resolving this debate is the real key challenge. Because fundamentally, we have a problem that we can't exempt some groups from response to climate change, which appears to be some of the motivation about eco-ableism. Now, we know we have groups that have more needs than others, but at which point do those needs transcend other people's? And I say that as an open question. I mean, I'm a scientist first and foremost, and climate change terrifies me. Climate change is coming for us, and it doesn't matter who you are or what you think is the appropriate thing to do. We are going to face a massive change in the way that we live. And one of those things is a massive reduction in the availability of resource. The social model of disability, which has done some amazing things about recharacterizing what it's like to be a disabled person in modern society, doesn't have a mechanism for essentially resource allocation. It doesn't have a mechanism for resolving issues between different groups. There's a very interesting definition of access frictions that I've come across recently, and I think these frictions exist in all manner of different topics. I mean, ultimately, how do we prioritize the rights of a disabled person to be able to drive to a particular location, burning carbon dioxide as they go, and the rights of a young child to be able to live in a world where they don't have a carbon dioxide mediated future, which has been taken away from them? I honestly don't have a answer to those questions, and I don't think anybody has an answer to those questions. But what I'd like to make the point is that is a question, and we can't ignore that and just say that we have to prioritize the human rights of individuals right now, because I think that's really dangerous. And I think Rachel really touched on this, where the sense that there's a future risk that we need to correctly account for, and it's because we can't do that in any precise way. But there is a real issue of what we take now, if you like, for people's rights, is taking away their rights in the future as climate change comes back. Things like flood risk and things are incredibly dangerous for people with disabilities, for disabled people. And I think that's a really difficult part of what we need to discuss and have an open discussion about. And I don't think that eco-ableism is the right framework to have that discussion in, because ultimately it seems that if you read, for example, Friends of the Earth literature about it, who acknowledge the existence of eco-ableism, is they try to push the question onto some unspecified larger institutions. But that's not necessarily going to get us out of the hole that we're currently heading towards. And so I'm not very fond of it as a term, because it removes that responsibility from people. So yeah, it's a challenge for our times. I think we need to work out where we want to sit on this debate, but we can't ignore the reality of the decisions that we make, and the absolutism is not going to get us anywhere. We have to work out what we have and how we can best apportion the resources that were available as that resources contract.
And just to add, Jamie, the feelings of apathy due to these huge emerging changes to our lifestyles as a consequence of the climate crisis, while that is daunting, we need to acknowledge how much more challenging these matters may be for those with disabilities who will be directly impacted as a result. It is so incredibly difficult to know how to find balance in such a conflicting debate.
And I think Rachel has a really nice point about finding ways in which we can bring disabled people to the forefront of any campaigns. And I think we need to move beyond the rather divisive language of eco-ableism to enable that to happen.
And I just want to thank you, Jamie, for joining me today and for collaborating with me on such a needed discussion on disability advocacy. Your insights have been enlightening, and hopefully not just for me, but everyone and anyone who is listening. And to those who are listening, we appreciate the support you are showing and encourage you to stay informed and have your voice heard too. Let's hope this podcast episode can cause a ripple effect to bring about positive change.